Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of TrueNAS Tech Talk. 25.04.2 has hit its code freeze point, so that much anticipated update is in the pipeline to get to your eager hands in late July. We'll talk a bit about some of the features that are coming there, and of course, we're going to touch on some of the feedback that we've received to those virtualization changes that have been announced. Kris is also going to lament the decreasing video quality on streaming services these days, and together we'll answer a couple of viewer questions. So let's open today, Kris. 25.04.2. We got a code freeze. What's that mean?
We hit a code freeze. So again, it's an internal engineering thing. We have target dates and everything's very scheduled, and we have process here. So code freeze means we've hit our point of freezing the branch within Git. Everything that we expect to merge in .2 is merged. We're now going to pivot over to working hard on the QA side. We're going to take several weeks to ensure all the fixes and updates are solid before we push out into the wild. We're estimating July 24th release at this stage, which is about 4 weeks out from probably the time you're watching this, maybe a little less. In particular, of course, we have to really vet the virtualization functionality again that we brought back from Electric Eel, and Kris is going to talk about that a little bit more in a moment. We got to make sure that's all solid. Again, the code hasn't really changed, so we're not anticipating a bunch of problems, but it's a .2. We want to make sure it's all right. And once that's all in decent shape for the push, it'll go out.
Yeah, this is the one that's usually used by our enterprise customers because typically a .2 release is when we start recommending it for the vast majority of the enterprise user base.
Absolutely. So again, it's got to be right, and there's still about 100 fixes scheduled for this release, so it's a pretty significant one. .2 is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
And again, thank you to all the users who helped us troubleshoot issues they found in the field. A lot of higher priority items were focused on the enterprise side. We have a lot of security hardening that's gone into Fangtooth in general, so that's good for enterprise customers. And then, of course, one nice little fix landed recently for SMB server-side copy support if you're running a Mac. Yay. I know we had a handful of folks see that.
One snuck in just under the wire, and I want to thank some of our community members who are in there sort of not only pointing out its absence, but actually sort of picking apart where to get into the code on the Apple side and say, what was it testing for? What was it looking for that maybe it wasn't, doing the right response? But it is kind of a question of, macOS has its own server-side copy semantics and its own, I/O controls to call. So it was basically kind of going, well, if it's not a Mac, I don't want to do server-side copy. So in some of their latest releases, we actually went into poking into the Apple open source repository there and said, hey, what are you guys doing with your Samba client? And we managed to find out the paths in the code it was using and said, well, we should be able to turn on server-side copy now. So offloaded copy for all of you Mac OS users. I don't know exactly which version is necessary to get their side of the server-side copy. But those of you doing like a lot of Final Cut Pro work or M&E guys, you'll be really happy to say, hey, we can now, drag and drop this project and it's going to go at, multiple gigabytes a second, even if you were editing wirelessly from your MacBook Air.
Yeah. And I guess we should mention that's using the block cloning feature in the backend for ZFS to handle that server-side copy, where it's not actually making a copy of all the blocks, just some metadata pointers and away you go. So it's going to be nice and snappy and save you some space of basically inline dedupe in the process. So good feature to have.
Pretty fantastic. But hey, let's talk a bit about the virtualization changes again. You said I'd mention it. We're going to talk about it again. It was the big topic of this past week. We definitely saw a lot of commentary about the return of, Virtualization Classic that's going to come in 25.04 and beyond. So a lot of people were saying, hey, this is great. This will let me upgrade from Electric Eel seamlessly. As soon as it drops, I got 30 VMs on my machine and I didn't want to jump into Fangtooth and convert them all over. So they're going to be ready to go. But we did have a few folks who said, hey, I made the jump to 25.04 and I converted all my virtualization VMs over to the Incus ones. And they said, what's going to happen to me in .2 or, the 25.10?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Hey, I'm in the same boat as you. I got to mention the Virtualization Classic. I like that. Is this our new Coke versus classic Coke moment?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Okay. But yeah, those who already did jump over to 25.04 and using VMs, again, I'm in that boat as well. That's where my Home Assistant OS is running. Again, we're not going to leave you out high and dry. We're going to make sure that you can bring the VMs over. Again, the disk contents of the VMs never go away one way or another. That's always going to be there. The hard part we have to handle, of course, is being able to migrate configuration knobs and do that in a seamless way. So I can't guarantee 100% of knobs will be seamless. There may still be, you have to go back and set up some pass-through things again, but we're going to try and make that as quick and easy as possible and low friction. So again, hopefully nobody's VMs will be damaged in the process.
Yeah, again, we're not touching the disk data. It's all about those, the more the complex pieces of the configuration, whether it's a USB or a PCIe device that's being passed through, especially, probably relevant to you, Chris, since you're using Home Assistant. So,
Absolutely.
Go ahead and be the first one into the pool there. Tell us how the water is.
Yeah,
But
I will definitely be trying it out here in the next few weeks.
yeah. But kind of as we mentioned in a previous podcast, we're looking more at like the feature set that we're trying to deliver and abstract away some of the underlying technology. Like we had some new features enabled with the instances VMs, secure boot and TPM, and it was good, but there were also some drawbacks there. There was a very specific way that data sets, disk locations had to be handled. But it's really about saying, hey, we want to deliver kind of features to you, not so much an underlying technology. Like we talked about we just did a Samba merge that fixed the macOS server-side copy, but people are at the same time asking us, hey, there's this new in-kernel KSMB. We're saying in the future, if we're able to achieve a feature parity, the ideal scenario is we could actually change those out. If they both deliver the same set of features, functionality, and performance, and maybe one has better performance than the other, it really should be a matter of we can just take one piece of technology out, we can plug the other one in. But we wouldn't want to say, oh, we're going to do this, and it's going to all of a sudden, all of the work that, our Samba developer put in there for the macOS server-side copy is just gone in the wind.
Yeah. So, just to be clear, we're not planning on doing that. That's not imminent or anything. So please calm down, lower your blood pressure if you're worried that we're about to change from Samba.
This is explicitly not a hint or an Easter egg. We promise we're not like scheming in the background here.
We're talking bigger picture though, because at the end of the day, TrueNAS, we're trying to get to the idea of we're trying to deliver features and functionality. It's about what knobs are in the UI, what features can you turn on or off. And as long as those features maintain parity or get better over time, tools are going to get swapped out in the back end. Do you really care which library is installed on the system? I mean, are you going to go audit all 300 packages or some odd packages and say, well, are they using this lib versus that lib? And again, at the end of the day, most people never, ever see those and never will.
If you are one of those people who likes to do that and you want to audit them, please feel free, go in there, check it out and be like, hey, is this particular package being used? And, maybe you're going to offer us a tip on it and you say, hey, there's a known issue and we can fix something.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just developer types have at it. That's wonderful. But you got to understand, we're kind of a special breed that knows those kind of bits and the implementation details. For a lot of people, they just want to click the button and see it work. Hey, I clicked the button. Why isn't my server-side copy working? Or why isn't my auditing turning on? Or why is it, X other feature of iSCSI working? And the details of which tool or library or, Linux or Unix call that's happening in the background is, purposely kind of obscured from you. Look, if you want to go build your own system from scratch, you can always go install, a Linux and build everything from hand. But there's a reason why we have appliances like TrueNAS, because nobody has the time to not only do that, but then maintain it forever, because that's the hardest part.
Exactly. It's building it's one thing, maintaining it is always the extra step. So just before we jump topics, the question, of course, always came up as well of, hey, what's happening to my containers? Yeah. Containers aren't going anywhere. They're staying experimental for now, but they're not going anywhere. They're going to remain in the instances tab. I have a few of those that I've been messing with. It's good when you want to just stand up a quick little Linux environment. And I think I saw a couple people who are using an elevated permission or elevated access kind of container to do some things like their fan control scripts, or even somebody who I think they set up their their ARGB LEDs to turn their whole case red if there was a fault or an alert, which is pretty fantastic. They said they could see it glowing from under the storage room door. It was okay. They just take a peek and they say, I see a bright red glow coming from under my door. Something's not right.
Yeah, I should go check on that. That's pretty nice. Well, again, containers are good technology. They're not going away. Yes, they will remain in experimental, but that won't be forever, because the plan is to get them out of experimental at some point and make those a first-class citizen. So again, work's going to be going on in the background to make that happen, but everything's incremental.
All right. Well, hey Chris,
Okay.
are you ready to get on your soapbox today?
Yeah, let's soapbox a little for the day here. So I was thinking the other day with kind of the death of physical media, this was something that was prompted because I was walking around in a couple of my big box retailers locally here, and I noticed they've both removed all of their movie collections. Like you cannot walk in and buy a Blu-ray. They don't exist anymore. Wow. Okay. Well, that kind of
Okay.
sucks, but we saw it coming. Right? This isn't a huge shock. And maybe people don't care anymore. I'm sure the retailers figured that out. They're probably not selling a lot of optical discs anymore. Everyone's got streaming services.
Yeah.
But
How many streaming services? I mean, there's,
uh,
how many
uh,
of them are there these days? I've lost count.
I think I have personally like 5 or something that we subscribe to. It's a lot. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. That's a whole
Right.
different conversation for a whole different day. I
Yeah.
think South Park did a whole episode on that. That was very good, by the way. But okay, for most people that's fine. But what about the movie snob who cares about like the highest quality, like I do? I realize we've all pretty much moved on to using streaming for all of our media consumption, and gone are the days where you could go pick up kind of a high quality, less compressed version of the movie. But some of us are snobs. Like I do lament the fact that the overall picture and audio quality's gone down as a result. I mean, even still, like if you go get a 1080p Blu-ray, it looks better in most cases than the 4K streaming thing you're getting from Netflix or from the various streaming services. It all has to do with bit rates and how they're encoded. Because let's be honest, the streaming services have to be able to encode at a bit rate that makes sense for most of their streaming customers who have different availabilities of different, downstream connections. And they probably just don't want to spend a crap ton of money streaming very large files when they don't have to, because, all those things have an infrastructure cost, right? Same with the audio quality track. Where's my Dolby Atmos uncompressed audio quality? Well, not everyone has that, right? So I realize, though, most people don't care. And this is kind of a, me complaining first world problems kind of situation here. But, I am an audio snob. I enjoy those things. And again, maybe if you're an average home user, you don't have a nice home theater setup like I do, you don't notice or you don't care. But for me, I do. Like I want to go sit and have a full movie theater experience. So it got me
Yeah.
thinking. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. I was gonna say I get that for most people. They say, hey, I've got a maybe I got a 50-inch TV or something.
Sure.
Maybe they're using that absolutely awful kind of motion doubling soap opera effect thing on
Oh,
their
hate that.
1080p Netflix stream, and
First thing I turn off.
twice the artifacting in one place. It's like multi-frame gen, but just no logic behind it. And maybe they're just using TV speakers or a sound bar. It's a
Mm-hmm.
whole different class of user from those who are saying, hey, I've got a 4K 75-inch screen. I sit the proper distance from it so I can fully resolve all the
Yep.
detail. And I got, like
Yep.
you said, you got your whole surround sound. Was it like, I remember
Dol-
when 5.1 was a thing. Now what are we at? Like 11.1?
Yeah, you can get that. I got a 7.1 Dolby Atmos system, and I got
So
a 130-inch screen with a 4K projector. It's really nice, HDR, the whole 9 yards. It looks great.
pass
And
the
optical
popcorn.
media, yeah, optical media still looks the best on it because just the extra bit rate matters in those cases, which again, I realize first world
Yeah.
problems and all that. But
Well,
it made,
it's your particular,
yeah,
people are
it's my
allowed to have
hobby.
hobbies.
Yeah.
People can spend an awful lot of hobbies. Anybody out in the audience who, is unfortunate enough to be enamored with, multiple expensive hobbies, be it computers or cars or motorcycles or something like that. Boy, there's probably people who have spent, many times what you've spent on your home theater
Oh, yeah, easily.
on their other hobbies.
No, I'm a
I may or
noob
may not be
compared to a
guilty of
lot of
that
others.
myself.
I'm a noob compared to some of the other setups I've
Yeah.
seen.
You
But it
mean
did make me.
you don't have cable elevators so that the bits don't fall on the ground, Chris?
No,
You're losing all
no.
that audio quality there.
I know,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
gold plated Ethernet and solid state drives that are geared for the best audio quality storage.
absolutely. Well,
Taking
maybe someday.
audiophile shots here.
Maybe someday.
Yeah,
But, it made me wonder about the business opportunity here because at some point there are going to be enough high end aficionados. I mean, 8K TVs are a thing now. They're starting
yeah,
to show up. You're seeing more 8K TVs. Projectors are going to become a little more common for 8K. What about the content? If no one's making physical media, optical media anymore, how are you going to get that, 400 gig movie file
yeah,
or whatever? So, that, again, got me thinking
yeah.
business opportunity here. What does something like a Plex or a Jellyfin have that some of the other set-top boxes don't? So the advantage these guys have over, say, a Roku or Google or Apple TV is they have access to lots of storage space because typically they're running on something like a TrueNAS where you have space and scratch space. And that's the most important thing if you're going to be able to offer kind of reference quality media viewing, right? So I'm wondering at some point when there is a rise of some sort of new, again, probably another streaming service built around the fact that you can get the highest quality 4K and 8K content that's not been recompressed to death down to 15 megabit type bit rates, kind of thing. And then you have the ability to use the scratch space locally to schedule downloads, ensure that you buffer enough before playback. I mean, we're already in the era of 1 gig fiber connections are becoming more and more common here in the US. I got 2 gig at my house. I can make a phone call and get 3 gig if I wanted to. But, okay, at those kind of speeds, yeah, sure, 100 gig movie download for being able to stream and do like an awesome movie night isn't that big of a deal. We can kind of do that in real time.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the size of the average video game these days.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Like
Steam's kind of like gone way beyond this already, like with the hundreds of gigabytes I have to download for some of these latest AAA titles.
So we can all shudder to think what the damage is going to be on everybody's bandwidth after the summer sale finishes. So I'm sure it'll be pretty sizable. But
yeah,
hey, it's one of those things like
are bracing.
Yeah. I mean, it was back in the day, lots of people said, hey, what's the point of even Blu-rays? DVDs look fine. And then it was sort of that shift happened over time where people said, hey, I see the difference. It's really good, the quality. And maybe it'll just be a matter of, the rising tide over time will eventually lift all boats. Bandwidth will get more available and storage capacity continues to increase. The prices and the difficulty of accessing it will come down. And hey, maybe, the response from the streaming providers will be like, okay, well, heck, we need to raise our bit rates. We got a real reason to do this. We got lots of people demanding, hey, I need better 4K. I got an 8K TV. Why are you sending me a, compressed stream that looks like that video from the White Stripes back in the day? I need something that, looks nice and crisp. And hey, maybe if that other commercial opportunity doesn't exist at that point, that'll be the point. Somebody says, all right, the bandwidth's cheap. The storage is cheap. I'm going to serve a business need.
Absolutely. But I think more likely what will happen is the streaming services will catch up eventually. We're just in that weird gap between the TVs technically have better quality and can support higher bits on the screen versus what Netflix is actually shipping you over the wire. Maybe we'll get to
leading edge of adoption problems, I guess.
Yeah. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see over time. And again, I do bemoan a little bit the death of the optical media and being able to have the physical copy. But that was what I used my Plex and Jellyfin instances for primarily, was being able to convert all those physical medias into the digital version. Because as I've mentioned, I think in previous episodes, I discovered my kids found it very hard to go actually put a disc in a player. It was just much easier to click a button on a remote. So I get it.
Fewer physical points of failure, certainly, on that one.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, well, that was a good time on the soapbox there. So let's jump into a couple of viewer questions here now. We got one from George. He says he's been busy playing with SNMP and Flink. I've never heard of that, but I should take a look at that. He says, looking at the docs, it lists a particular path on TrueNAS as the location for our MIB files, and your docs imply there should be many, but on my build of 25.04.1, the latest, there seems to only be a single file of TrueNAS MIB.txt. Would love for you to cover some of the details on the SNMP options configuration. I realize it's a very open-ended question, but I think it's a bit of an underutilized capability on TrueNAS. So,
yeah, underutilized is correct, but at the same time, we see less and less people interested in it. Maybe it's just one of those things that have just fallen out of vogue with a lot of users. We did see it at one point years ago, more on the enterprise side. People were leveraging it more extensively. And even today, it's not used as often in the wild as it was in the past. But yeah, it is just the one MIB file. And occasionally we do go and update it and throw new things in there as requests come in. But it's one of those demand situations. There needs to be asks and people putting in requests. This would actually be a great topic for the forums to get a thread started to see who else is using SNMP these days and what features they want or would be interesting to add there. That way we can judge demand and say, okay, well, let's go tackle some of the more popular ones, assuming there are. I think, again, we just don't hear a lot about it these days. We don't see tickets coming in. We don't see people having real asks. I don't know. Are you using it at all, Chris?
No, I admit I'm not. I'm using like email notifications, and that's about the most I get into.
Same.
Worrying too much about what TrueNAS is doing it, but maybe that's a testament to it's just working. It does its thing, and I don't need to really worry too much.
Yeah, I don't personally use it either anymore. And again, we just see less and less people using it over time. So maybe it is just one of those underutilized capabilities, which has, again, fallen out of vogue with a lot of people on how they monitor their infrastructure. But if you're one of the folks who uses it heavily and you want to see it make a comeback and make a push, go make some noise on the forums. Like I said, get a thread going. Let's see who else is using it, who some of your compatriots might be who say, oh, yeah, I would like to use this more heavily and more extensively. And we'll kind of gauge feedback that way.
Yeah, certainly. It's make one of those feature request threads and see about ginning up some support. We definitely had another user. I think he's asking for a particular Intel ACPI power management one. He's
Mm-hmm.
got some momentum behind him, so we'll have to take a look at that one, Chris, and
Mm-hmm.
see what's going on there with the Intel versus ACPI idle controls.
Yeah,
But
sounds good.
yeah,
All
let's
right,
jump
well,
into our next question here.
yeah, let me read here from David. He said, when was the last time you guys had a TrueNAS node ping or SSH another TrueNAS node over Tailscale? I haven't been able to do that, which means I cannot do snapshot replication over Tailscale. Okay, David, so that's interesting. And it turns out you're right. I hadn't noticed that. So I do have Tailscale. I mentioned, I think, on last week's episode. I have two TrueNAS systems, my primary, my backup. They both have Tailscale. I have Tailscale running in high availability with exit nodes on each, blah, blah, blah. But I never noticed they couldn't ping each other. And the reason why is I have them talking to each other over the local subnet. They're literally sitting right next to each other and configured all that way. So I went and started fooling around and noticed, yeah, you're right. I can't ping. I cannot talk to each other over the Tailscale IPs. So I did a little searching in the background, and it turns out it's a known thing, and it's a thing you have to fix. The fix is real easy, though. It's a implementation detail or quirk, I guess, of the Tailscale Docker app, which is what, of course, our application is. You need to go log into your TrueNAS, go to the Tailscale app, uncheck the box for user space on both. I think it's checked by default. I'll have to go double check the defaults afterwards. But if you turn that off, it allows it to use the kernel side and the ton devices, and will re-enable so you can ping and SSH between the two TrueNASs over the Tailscale IPs. I went and tested it this morning on my box, and that made it work immediately. It was awesome. So again, an easy fix. It's one click away, and you should be able to get that back up and running and be able to do TrueNAS to TrueNAS replications or other things that you want to do. And yeah, that's hopefully easy enough. And then we'll go take a look and see if that should be the default or not. I admittedly didn't have enough time before the show this morning to go look at the implications of turning that on or off and why user space is preferred, I guess, in some cases. So I'm sure there's a pro con list.
Yeah, I admit I don't know too much about that one, and as I think I mentioned, I use a separate WireGuard box. So I mean, my TrueNAS just reached out to the other IP space. So I was thinking, when I saw this question come in, I went, well, is this a Tailscale specific thing? Because I didn't seem to have an issue with something over WireGuard. So I guess it is. It's not only Tailscale but Docker specific.
It may be just their Docker version. But again, I'll have to go do some more research in the background because now I'm curious. Just didn't have enough time before during the prep here to go look into it more. But that's at least the fix. So hopefully that'll get you up and running. Then in the background, we'll go take a look, and maybe the user space option doesn't have enough reasons to exist, and we should make that not the default. But I'll talk to our apps guy, and we'll see.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for the questions. Thanks for tuning in again today. That's going to be it for now. So we'll be back again next week with another episode. Thanks again for tuning into the TrueNAS Tech Talk podcast. As always, feel free to submit your questions in to t3@truenas.com. Drop us a message in the comment section below, or the forums, or the email. Please do those usual YouTube things again. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and keep listening to T3 to stay on top of all the latest TrueNAS and tech topics. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.